Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Shannon Scott. Megan Roberts is off this week. Nunavut's Privacy Commissioner wants the Workers' Safety and Compensation Commission to make public its report into the death of Maya Batia. Batia died in 2023 while on a research project in Grise Fjord. And as TJ Deer reports, her family also wants the findings released.
When Maya Batia fell into a glacier near Grise Fjord, she died. Her body has never been recovered. The University of Alberta completed and filed its investigation into Batia's death with the Workers' Safety and Compensation Commission. An application was made to release the investigation, which the commission initially declined to do. The applicant appealed to Nunavut's Privacy Commissioner, Graham Steele. He is now recommending the release of the university's investigation and the witness statement from a member of another research team who was in Grise Fjord at the time. In his report, Steele wrote that one of the core purposes of the territory's privacy legislation is to make the commission more accountable to the public. He also wrote that it's inappropriate to keep the investigation private on privacy grounds when the employee is deceased and their family wants the report publicly released.
In a statement to CBC News, the Commission said it supports Steele's recommendations and that it's working on a timeline for the public release of the report. The University of Alberta declined to comment. TJ Deer, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The federal government is cutting more funding aimed at helping in the search for unmarked graves at former residential schools. It's money communities have been relying on for years now. News of the cut overshadowed an event in Whitehorse this weekend held by the committee that will now soon be shut down. Katrin Pilkington has that story.
Here at the Kwanlin Dunn Cultural Center in downtown Whitehorse, survivors and Indigenous leaders gathered to share strategies in the search for missing children. The host organization, the National Advisory Committee, has acted as a publicly funded resource for this work since 2022. It supports archival work, local genealogical research, and on-the-ground forensic efforts. But just before this meeting, the federal government decided to end its funding. The committee will shut down on March 31st.
All of those technical and expert sort of resources will be lost to communities now, and they'll need to find new sources of expertise to do this kind of research. This is a very strong foundation for communities to reference and turn to, so it will definitely hold back significant research by communities.
Survivors say the decision is deeply hurtful.
You know, my concern is that we still have a lot of lost people out there, and if they don't find closure, and that's not something I want or anybody else wants because of the journey. We have to come to the end of our journey in a good way.
Let's bring them home for the sake of our community's healing. The healing is very important. If you can imagine, if your child has been missing for 50 to 60 years, you don't know where they are, how heartbreaking that is. And when you finally get to a point, I have told families, yes, we're finally getting the resources, we can do this. What would you like the next step to be? And all of a sudden, there's no next step.
In a statement, the federal government did not address the reasoning behind its decision, but said another source of funding is still available to communities. That same grant was also cut last July. Communities can now only receive a maximum of $500,000 for searches. Katrin Pilkington, CBC News, Whitehorse.
The high school in Nalyat, Nunavut is facing a teacher crunch. A number of them have resigned, and the school now has only half the teaching staff it needs. The Department of Education says 11 of 21 teaching positions at Nugalek High School are unfilled. And the president of the Nunavut Teachers Association says he's worried teachers in the community aren't getting the support they need.
We've seen a large number of resignations happening. It's really concerning. We don't have the full story of what's taking place. We're just hearing snippets. But what we've heard is causing a lot of alarm for us.
The Education Department declined an interview request, but says there are enough teachers to maintain full-day programming at the high school. A spokesperson says they are actively recruiting teachers in Nunavut. The Grays Bay Road and Port project is moving ahead with an environmental review. It would build a road system connecting Yellowknife to the Arctic Ocean. Canada's Minister of Northern Affairs has agreed with the recommendation to do the review from the Nunavut Impact Review Board. A date for a public hearing has not yet been set. Elections NWT is looking to modernize the way elections are run in the territory. As part of its 4-year plan, the organization says it wants to help fight back against misinformation and disinformation.
We are a trusted source of information for elections. So one of the things that we are looking at internally is how can we improve our ability to get information out clearly and make sure that people know where to go find the correct information.
Dunbar says Elections NWT also wants to provide more voting information in Indigenous languages and help support other agencies that hold elections across the territory. One of only 2 vet clinics in the NWT has closed. And as Sarah Krimilowski reports, it's leaving a big gap in pet care.
Yellowknife's Great Slave Animal Hospital served pets across the territory for decades, but now it's closed for good, leaving only one NWT vet clinic treating pets. One advocate says it's a loss for pets across the territory. Amy Mond is a director at the volunteer-run Plinshaw Animal Care Society. The organization worked closely with Great Slave Animal Hospital.
Right now, I have no access. If I have a dog that is hit by a car in the Quechua region and I fly it to Yellowknife under an emergency, as far as I know, I have no access to veterinary care for that animal.
Great Slave Animal Hospital's former vet, Katie Denaroche, has said she will be opening a new clinic, but hasn't said yet when that will happen. For now, her team will be offering some care remotely. According to a social media post, they will focus on filling prescriptions and dealing with emergencies, but they will also be able to do some surgeries that were previously planned, with the NWT SPCA providing use of its facilities. Denaroche is asking clients to reach out via email with questions. Sarah Krimilowski, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Forced and coerced sterilization of Indigenous people is still happening. The Survivors Circle for Reproductive Justice has supports available for Indigenous survivors. Join the National Registry and access up to $70,000 in healing support funds for individuals, families, and communities. The deadline to apply is March 31st. If you or someone you know has experienced forced and coerced sterilization, please call 1-877-386-0750 or visit reproductivejusticesurvivors.ca for more information.
The Kanwipita National Inuit Health Survey team is going to every community in Nunavut, speaking to Inuit about their health and wellness. And every answer will help us as Inuit determine our own priorities for a healthier future. Together, we will answer the question, Kanwipita, how are we? Find out when we're coming to your community. Learn more at qnihs.ca.
Escaping off the attitude. Old man eating all my food. Don't be kind, don't be rude. Just shake your boots and let it all get loose.
In your once stolen vehicle in West Africa.
Jumped in a car and then off they went.
I want my truck back. 300% increase in auto theft.
300%.
It's organized crime, well financed.
They are selling vehicles that are insecure.
They're working on it.
We hear that from a lot of automakers.
Yeah.
We think we found your car.
Oh my goodness.
The candidates in the federal Liberal leadership race passed a major hurdle today. All 5 submitted the final fee required to take part. And in just 3 weeks' time, one of them will replace Justin Trudeau as the next Prime Minister of Canada. David Thurton has the latest on their campaigns.
Mark Carney is bringing in the crowds.
I find it very energizing and empowering. I mean, it's a privilege to go across the country and talk with Canadians.
And he's bringing in the money. Almost $2 million, more than enough to pay the $350,000 entrance fee due in full today. At least one other campaign struggled to raise the cash.
I have to say that it was a high fee, but we've got momentum across the country.
But with Karina Gould and others meeting the deadline, candidates are now trying to sell their messages and themselves, like businessman Frank Bayless.
My challenge is that I'm lesser known than the other candidates because I don't come from the Ottawa bubble. I come from a business world.
He's the only Quebecer in the race and promoting his bilingualism among his strengths. That's a challenge for Ruby Dalla, who's brushing up on her French before next week's debates.
I do not want the fact that I am not fully bilingual at this particular time, even though I speak 4 other languages. I do not want that, to be preventative from French Canadians hearing of my vision and speaking of my message.
She's appealing to the party to provide a translator, a request it previously denied.
I'm hoping to come first. I'm in this to win this.
If you didn't have Canadian electricity, the lights in your building right now might not be shining.
Chrystia Freeland has focused her attention on speaking with U.S. media, saying she's best suited to battle Donald Trump after going toe-to-toe with the president in NAFTA negotiations, something Mark Carney also sees himself as best placed to do.
I'm a good negotiator. I have negotiated a number of situations in the past. I know how to manage crises.
All 5 candidates vying to be Canada's next Liberal leader and Canada's next Prime Minister will meet on stage in Montreal next week for debates first in French and then in English. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
One issue the new Liberal leader will have to deal with right away is Donald Trump's broadsides around tariffs and the 51st statehood. Those have ignited anger and disgust among many Canadians. But over Trump's shoulder, Canadians are also noticing Elon Musk. And that's been creating a new lightning rod for some Canadian outrage, Musk's Teslas. The CBC's Sarah Levitt has that story.
I bought this before Elon went crazy.
Bob Porter loves his Tesla, but recently added a new accessory, a sticker clarifying his stance.
Emotions are running high, so of course people are looking at Tesla owners like we are all part of his club, and it's not true.
The club he's talking about is that of Elon Musk. The world's richest man owes much of his wealth to founding Tesla and SpaceX. But he's been in the news a lot lately for his prominent role in U.S. President Donald Trump's new administration, a role Musk started by making a hand gesture at Trump's inauguration, many said appeared to be a Nazi salute. Crowds of people opposed to Musk's politics protested outside Tesla dealerships across the U.S. over the weekend. There's also been vandalism, like outside this store in Vancouver, something police are investigating. Some Tesla owners, like singer Sheryl Crow, are waving goodbye to their cars entirely. There comes a time when you have to decide who you are willing to align with. So long, Tesla. Not everybody agrees.
Oh, hell yeah. You get a lot of attention, that's for sure.
Caesar Cerny is a proud owner of a Cybertruck and says he knows just how polarizing the vehicle can be, and even more so now. But he didn't buy it as a political statement.
I like technology. I work in tech. I support tech, and I think this is the future. So for me, the adoption was very simple. It's just an amazing car to drive.
At the Canadian International Auto Show, Tesla's showcase attracts both the curious and the hardcore fans.
I am a huge Elon Musk fan, a huge Tesla fan, and that's changed my opinion not even one little bit.
He's such a modern thinker and stuff. I think he's got a lot of good to bring to the world.
Whether fans or not, Tesla drivers say they feel the hostility on the road, something unlikely to change in the current political climate. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
With tensions high between Canada and the U.S. over tariffs and sovereignty, some Canadians have called on leaders to cut off energy supplies to the U.S. But now others are urging them to tear up a decades-old water treaty. That Brand has those details.
A stunning vista, but not to Crystal Spicer.
It's devastating to look at.
That's because decades ago it was here that waters swallowed her family farm when this area was flooded.
I'll never forget the paradise it was before.
A fertile valley, First Nations lands, all lost to create a reservoir to control the water flow for downstream states.
I've always looked forward to the modernization or the termination of the treaty because it's been so unbalanced.
The Spicers fought for their home, less water fluctuations to preserve the fish, the river, seen by Trump as a faucet.
So you have millions of gallons of water pouring down from the north with the snow caps in Canada and all pouring down. And they have essentially a very large faucet.
These red dots represent just some of the 60 dams on the Columbia River Basin system, which provides more than 40% of all the hydroelectric power in the U.S.
I know Canada was compensated monetarily, but not enough for what Canada lost.
She says tearing up the treaty would help Canada push back against tariff and other threats.
And if Canada really wants to play hardball, Canada can say, we're serving notice of termination. We're going to run this river exactly how we want to run this river.
The BC minister in charge of treaty negotiations says the process would take 10 years and wouldn't help.
It wouldn't have much impact on the current situation, which is an immediate and vicious attack on Canadian sovereignty that we have to respond to.
I am in favor of it because we need control for our own objectives.
Spicer is all for terminating the treaty. As for Trump retaliation,
I would expect it, but I would hope that Canada would stand its ground.
She hopes at least the renegotiated, modernized treaty, which involved years of talks with First Nations and surrounding communities, will survive the latest turbulence coming from our southern neighbor. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, Trump's push to make Canada the 51st state may be about more than just water. It's also reportedly driven by a desire for access to critical minerals. Sam Sampson shows us how these resources could fuel a power struggle.
Guaranteed you're watching this on something built with critical minerals. They're those raw materials that make up a lot. Everything from computers, TVs, phones, electric vehicles, fertilizers, and military weapons. And Canadians are talking about them a lot more ever since US President Donald Trump mused about using economic force to annex Canada.
I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state.
Then our Prime Minister said on a hot mic Trump's threat was serious.
It is a real thing. In my conversation with him,
CBC cameras didn't catch the entire statement, but the Toronto Star recorded more. It reported Trudeau said, "I suggest that not only does the Trump administration know how many critical minerals we have, but that may be even why they keep talking about absorbing us and making us the 51st state." The term critical mineral is a political one. If it's crucial to Canada's economic or national security, it makes the cut. Canada has 34 critical minerals extracted from sites nationwide, and we're a key supplier to the United States. Canada exported almost $30 billion worth of critical minerals to the US in 2023, more than any other country. They need what we've got.
It would be hard for someone else to fill the gap. We are the world's number 2 producer and exporter of uranium. Potash, we're the world's number 1 producer, exporter of potash. Nickel, we are a very significant exporter of nickel.
For the past few years, Canada and the US have tried to strengthen North America's critical mineral production, even putting their collab in writing back in 2020, a way to be less reliant on China's and other countries' unfair trade practices.
People woke up and realized that China had been investing in these for decades when no one else had. That was the big wake-up call, I think, for North America. If there's going to be more uncertainty in the world and we're going to have issues with international trade, we need to make sure that we have safe and secure access to what we need to build our economies.
Canada isn't the only place Trump is zoning in on. He's using foreign war aid as a bargaining chip to get Ukraine's critical minerals.
I think we've seen since Russia invaded Ukraine the importance of commodities from a geopolitical perspective. I think all countries are looking at how to secure their supply, not be dependent on their adversaries for that supply.
Thing is, the US can already get to our resources.
Does Donald Trump want to steal our critical minerals? What is the motivation here? American companies have the same access to Canadian minerals as Canadian companies have. They have to negotiate the terms of the purchase, but the border itself is not relevant under the free trade agreement.
When you say steal, what do you mean?
That's to take them without paying a fair market price without actually having a consensual contractual relationship. The CEOs of thousands of big companies in the United States know that free trade works for them. And that, I hope, will restrain Donald Trump in the months ahead.
We've worked hard on this agreement. It's been long and hard. We've taken a lot of barbs.
The trade agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada is up for review next year, a set of rules Trump's first administration agreed to.
It's a little bit of sort of chaos theory getting introduced to early stage negotiations on the next round of what our trade agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico will look like. He's trying to kind of rattle us there a little bit.
Turen says these conversations don't change much for his Canadian nickel mining company. In the end, he believes critical minerals and other resources will actually work in Canada's favor.
If they're not going to get it from Canada, they're going to have to get it from China and Russia. And when you're exposed to reliance on those countries for your supply chain, it puts you in a delicate position. That's why I think we should feel confident as Canadians in this context.
Some say if this goes further, Canada could slap export restrictions on our critical minerals, but that would continue to slow development, the main goal both countries were trying to reach.
Our thanks to Sam Sampson in Toronto for that story. Pope Francis remains in hospital tonight and will remain there for the foreseeable future. In an update, doctors say they are changing his treatment and describe his illness as complex. Megan Williams has the details from Rome.
Pope Francis is heading into his fourth night here in Gemelli Hospital. He was brought here on Friday afternoon. The Vatican issued a statement saying he had bronchitis. The Pope himself had said earlier that he was suffering from a bad cold, and he'd lost his voice last week and was not able to attend some of the events in person. Now, earlier today, the Vatican issued an update saying that his medical situation was more complex. It was saying that doctors had said that he had what is a polymicrobial respiratory tract infection. That's something that doctors say could be pneumonia. Of course, the Pope is 88 years old. He is not in fantastic health. He has had mobility issues, a bad knee, suffering from sciatica. So that's limited how much he can move around. He gets around on a wheelchair and in his home with a cane. He's had a couple of falls. And as a result of not being able to get around, he's put on weight recently as well. Now, the Vatican said his treatment is responding, of course, to what they say is this complex clinical situation. He's getting excellent care, as he always has here at Gemelli Hospital in Rome. This is his fourth time in the last 4 years that he's come here, the second time for bronchitis. Everybody here in Italy and Rome is watching the situation closely and hoping the Pope recovers soon and gets out of hospital. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
The work of an artist from Inukjuak, Nunavik is currently on display at the National Gallery of Canada. Asinuak's work will be part of the new 2025 Generation Photography Award exhibition. As an artist, they say they look at their immediate surroundings for inspiration.
I really love spending time with my family and outside on the land and looking. There's so many incredible things. So basically what inspired me is every time there's something interesting, it has interesting texture or color. For some reason, it feels like a good moment to look with a camera, and that's what inspired it.
The exhibit will be on display in Ottawa until June 1st. Going up to -1 in Whitehorse later this week, -10 in Iqaluit. That's going to feel positively spring-like. I hope you're able to get out and enjoy the more mild temperatures. That is our show for tonight. For news anytime, you can always visit our website, cbc.ca/north. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Shannon Scott. Have a great night. We'll see you again tomorrow.
In your once stolen vehicle in West Africa.
That is crazy. Jumped in a car and then off they went.
I want my truck back.
300% increase in auto theft.
300%.
It's organized crime, well-financed.
They are selling vehicles that are insecure.
They're working on it.
We hear that from a lot of automakers.
Yeah.
We think we found your car.
Oh my goodness.
Earth is our collective home. That makes us all family. As family, we strive to love and protect each other. Diversity of species is our strength. We are all connected. We survive and thrive together. We celebrate many things this season and make many choices. Taking care of our family should be the easiest. We're in this together.
I'm not special. Cancer happens to people all the time. I take 1 mile at a time, 26 miles a day. I want to set an example that'll never be forgotten. Sometimes, it feels endless. But the pain I feel is nothing. I've seen little kids in so much pain. Somewhere, the hurting must stop.
Terry Fox ran more than halfway across Canada to raise money for cancer research. Every year, millions of people around the world continue the marathon of hope in his name.
One good scheme deserves another.
Stay on him.
I feel we may be in for a challenging few days.
Cheers. Cheers.
Stream anytime. CBC News.
Wasn't easy growing up on Sargent Avenue. Bunch of Icelandic boys nobody wanted around. But hockey was good to us.
We're signing up then, George. Only if Connie here joins up with us.
And the war came along. Broke up the team. But we were needed, and we went. It cost us. Too much, maybe. I don't know. But I do know one thing. We still got some fight left in us, right, boys? It's the game we've been saving it for. For us. For Canada. For the boys of Sargent Avenue.
The Winnipeg Falcons served Canada in the First World War. 2 teammates never made it home. The rest went on to win the very first gold medal in Olympic hockey.